Chapter 8, Boomtowns. Besides being dangerous, prospecting was also boring. Miners were eager to escape work and have some fun. Throughout the Sierra Nevada foothills, many small towns seemed to spring up overnight. The population exploded, so gold rush towns were nicknamed boomtowns. Boomtowns were rowdy, busy places. They had small restaurants, saloons, dance halls, and general stores. Sometimes a merchant simply laid a board across two barrels on the street. Then he'd set his wares out to sell to passers-by. Sacramento and Stockton were the closest towns to Sutter's sawmill. Both grew with lightning speed during the gold rush. In April 1849, the population of Sacramento was 150 people. 6 months later, 6,000 people lived there. Almost all of them were men. Hotels and theaters were built. Musicians, opera singers, and actors came to perform. If they liked a show, miners might toss coins or gold onto the stage. If they didn't, they might throw rotten food or trash. The most exciting city in California was San Francisco. It was 140 miles from Sutter's sawmill. Still, it was the closest port to the gold fields. It became known as the Golden Gate, and it grew faster than any other city in California. In 1848, less than 1,000 people lived in San Francisco. 5 years later, 50,000 people lived there. Its streets were muddy and crowded with people from all over the world. Many languages were spoken, including German, Chinese, French, and Spanish. In San Francisco, there were bullfights, circuses, and theaters. However, gambling was the most popular form of entertainment. Street gamblers set up card games under tents. Gambling halls like the Bella Union were in fancy buildings. They were decorated with chandeliers and mirrors. Piles of gleaming gold sat on their tables. Some miners would play card games like faro or poker. They might lose all their hard-earned gold in one game. Where there was gambling, there was usually smoking and drinking. Sometimes there were fist fights or gunfights. In the summer of 1849, the San Francisco harbor was full of ships, abandoned ships, about 200 of them. Their crews and captains had all gone prospecting. Who could blame them? Sailors only earned $10 a month. They had heard prospectors could earn that much in less than a day. By 1850, there were more than 600 abandoned ships in the harbor. Many eventually rotted and sank. Others were taken apart so that the wood could be used for new buildings, but dozens of ships were dragged ashore. Entire ships got turned into warehouses or saloons. A ship named the Niantic became a hotel that made $20,000 a month. Another named the Euphemia became the city's first prison. Henry Wells, William Fargo, and others began a stagecoach mail service in March of 1852. Their 6-horse coaches were red with yellow wheels. A green treasure box was kept under the driver's feet. It carried gold nuggets, business documents, and mail. Travel from San Francisco to St. Louis, Missouri, took about 3 weeks. This business grew into Wells Fargo and Company. It operates a large chain of banks today. Businessmen and miners began to bring their families out west. San Francisco slowly became more civilized. Schools and churches were built. Fancy shops opened. An Italian named Domingo Ghirardelli began selling candy in 1852. His shop grew into the Ghirardelli Chocolate Company. It has been in business for more than 160 years. Silver. The biggest silver strike in the United States was in Nevada in 1859. No one is sure who discovered it. Some say it was 2 brothers named Ethan and Hosea Grosh, but the silver was named the Comstock Lode, after Henry Comstock. He claimed some of the Grosh brothers' land after they died. An investor and a partner in a mine on the Comstock Lode, George Hearst was an expert miner and successful businessman. He grew fabulously wealthy and became a U.S. Senator. He was also the father of William Randolph Hearst, a famous newspaperman. Men who'd gotten rich in the West had the money to bring culture and refinement to the city. They wanted it to become like New York, Paris, or London. Their money and power would help these dreams come true. Klondike Gold Rush. Two prospectors found gold while fishing in a creek off the Klondike River in 1896. This was in northwest Canada's Yukon Territory, Alaska today. The news sparked a huge gold rush. By 1897, 100,000 miners had come from all over the world. The Klondike was hard to reach. It was snowy and freezing cold. Miners had to carry supplies up steep, icy mountains. Some fell to their deaths. Less than half of them would make it to the mountains and forests, where the gold had been found. If they did make it, the gold digging was hard. Frozen soil called permafrost covered much of the land. Only about 4,000 miners actually found any gold, but some got rich. In 1903, an author named Jack London wrote a book set during the Klondike Gold Rush, The Call of the Wild. People were fascinated by gold rushes. The book became very popular and is still read widely today.